Imagine staring down at your bank balance, watching that miserable little number sneer back at you from your screen. Maybe it's $7,342. Or hey, maybe it's $216 if you're having a halfway decent month. Either way, that initial $1,000 feels about as reachable as scaling Everest in flip-flops. Meanwhile, some internet finance guru is telling you that once you cross $10,000, the following $10,000 arrives twice as fast. And you're sitting there thinking, yeah, sure, tell that to my maxed out credit card. Well, here's the reality check that's about to rock your world. That finance guru isn't feeding you lies. In fact, they're not even revealing the full extent of how ridiculously easier things get. The psychology and the raw mathematics behind why your first $1,000 is exponentially tougher than your next $10,000 isn't just cheerful motivation. It's hard, undeniable science, and most people never grasp it. Which is precisely why they stay stuck in financial misery their whole lives. I'm Gen Z Invest, and I spend an embarrassing amount of time thinking about why certain people build wealth like a breeze while others grind for decades and end up with nothing to show for it. If you're exhausted from feeling like you're stuck on a financial hamster wheel, spinning your wheels but going nowhere, smash that subscribe button because we're about to plunge into the psychological war happening inside your skull every time you attempt to stash away cash. Alright, before we dive into the brutal math that proves this point, let me ask you something. When you picture wealthy individuals, what comes to mind? Maybe someone who never struggled with money. Someone who instinctively understood how to save and invest. Someone born with some special financial gene that you clearly missed out on. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The gap between people who accumulate wealth and people who don't has almost nothing to do with their income, and everything to do with recognizing the invisible psychological forces working against them. Your brain is literally hardwired to torpedo your financial success. And I'm not being dramatic. Neuroscientists have studied this inside out. There's a concept called temporal discounting, a fancy label for the fact that your brain prizes immediate rewards way more than future payoffs. Think about it like this. Your brain sees dropping $50 on dinner tonight as incredibly tempting. But setting aside that same $50 for some hazy future version of yourself feels about as thrilling as watching paint dry. But here's where it gets really fascinating. The very psychological mechanism that makes saving your first $1,000 feel impossible is exactly what makes the next $10,000 feel effortless once you learn to work with it instead of against it. We're going to break down the exact mental roadblocks keeping you trapped and show you how to flip your brain from your worst financial enemy into your most powerful wealth-building ally. The first barrier you're up against is what psychologists call the house money effect. Your brain literally treats cash differently depending on its origin. Money you earn from your regular 9-to-5 feels heavy, significant, painful to let go of. But money you discover in an old jacket pocket, or a tax refund, or that $20 your grandma slipped you during the holidays, that money feels different. Your brain files it under play money, and you're far more likely to blow it on something ridiculous. This is why most people never amass wealth despite pulling in decent paychecks. They're mentally sorting their money in ways that sabotage their own progress. Every dollar ought to be treated identically, no matter where it came from. But your brain keeps running these strange accounting tricks that keep you broke. Then you've got the money scripts buried deep in your subconscious. These are beliefs about money programmed into your head during childhood. And they're running your financial life whether you know it or not. Maybe you grew up listening to your parents fight over bills, so now your brain links having money with conflict and anxiety. Maybe you heard phrases like, "We can't afford that," so often that your brain genuinely believes you're not the kind of person who gets to have nice things. Or maybe you were raised in a household where money was never discussed at all. So you develop a strange shame around even thinking about building wealth, as if wanting financial security somehow makes you greedy or shallow. These invisible scripts are making financial choices for you every single day, and most people go their entire lives without ever realizing they're there. Here's the really messed up part. Your brain has been evolutionarily programmed to keep you alive, not to make you rich. For thousands of years, the humans who survived were the ones who grabbed immediate resources when they appeared, because there was no guarantee those resources would still be there tomorrow. Your brain is still running that ancient software that prioritizes instant gratification over long-term planning. So when you're trying to save money, you're literally fighting millions of years of evolutionary coding. Your brain is yelling at you to spend that cash now on something tangible and immediate because what if there's no food tomorrow? What if the shelter disappears? What if this opportunity never knocks again? It's totally irrational in our modern world. But your brain doesn't know that. This is why building that first $1,000 feels like such a monumental uphill battle. You're not just fighting your circumstances or your paycheck. You're fighting your own biology. Every time you choose to save instead of splurge, you're going against every instinct your brain has developed over millennia, and your brain will resist you every step of the way. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Once you cross certain psychological thresholds, something magical happens. Your brain stops seeing saving as deprivation and starts seeing it as achievement. The same psychological forces that were fighting you suddenly flip and begin working in your favor. The research on this is absolutely mind-blowing. There's a concept called self-efficacy, basically, your belief in your own ability to succeed. When you have $0 saved, the idea of having $10,000 feels completely out of reach. Your brain can't even picture it happening, so it doesn't bother trying. But once you hit your first $1,000, something clicks. Your brain suddenly has proof that you're the kind of person who can save money. This isn't just fluffy psychology. This is measurable, documented behavioral change. People who successfully save their first $1 are exponentially more likely to save their next 1,000 than people who have never saved a dime. It's as if your brain rewrites its entire narrative about who you are and what you're capable of. And here's where the math starts getting seriously interesting. That first $1,000 depends almost entirely on your behavior and your ability to spend less than you earn. But once you've got money stashed away, compound growth starts doing the heavy lifting for you, even at modest returns. Your money begins earning money, which earns more money, which earns even more money. Let me show you exactly how this works with real numbers that will change how you think about every financial decision you make for the rest of your life. Let's say you decide to put away just $100 every single month. I know you're probably thinking $100 might as well be $100,000 when you're looking at your current budget. But stick with me, because the math is about to get absolutely wild. At $100 per month, it takes you exactly 10 months to scrape together your first $1,000. 10 months of turning down things you want. 10 months of feeling like you're making zero headway. 10 months of your friends thinking you've lost your mind because you won't eat out anymore. Those 10 months feel like an eternity because your brain is constantly reminding you of all the stuff you could be buying instead. But here's where things start shifting. That same $100 per month, after you've already got some money working for you, starts behaving completely differently. Let's say you keep saving that $100 monthly. But now you're earning a conservative 7% annual return on your investments. Nothing crazy, just basic stock market returns that have been playing out for decades. Your second $1,000 takes about 9 months instead of 10. Your brain barely notices this difference, but the pattern has already begun. Your third $1,000 takes 8.5 months. Your fourth takes just under 8 months. By the time you're working on your $10,000, it's taking you less than 6 months to save each additional $1,000. But this is where most people's brains explode, because we're not just talking about the time anymore. We're talking about the fact that your money is literally working harder than you are. While you're sleeping, while you're at your day job complaining about your boss, while you're binge-watching Netflix, your investments are out there making money. By the time you hit $10,000 saved and invested, something absolutely mind-blowing happens. Your investments start generating enough returns that they're doing a significant chunk of the lifting. At 7% annual returns, your $10,000 is earning about $700 per year without you lifting a finger. That's like getting almost 2 months of your $100 monthly savings for free. Now your brain starts to get it. You start checking your investment account balance not with dread but with genuine excitement. You start seeing those monthly gains and thinking, holy crap, this is actually working. The same psychological mechanisms that made saving feel impossible are now making saving feel addictive. This is when people start doing things that seem crazy to their broke friends. They start hunting for ways to boost their monthly savings. They start getting excited about tax refunds not because they can blow the cash on something fun, but because they can dump it into their investments and watch it multiply. They start seeing expensive dinners not as treats they deserve, but as opportunities they're giving up. Your brain has completely rewired itself. Instead of viewing saving as deprivation, you start viewing spending as the thing that's robbing you of your future wealth. This psychological flip is so powerful that people often describe it as life-changing, like they've finally cracked a secret that everyone else is missing. And here's the really beautiful part. The more money you have working for you, the less dependent you become on your own contributions. Remember, we started with you saving $100 per month, which felt impossible. But when you have $50,000 invested at 7% returns, that money is earning about $3,500 per year on its own. That's almost 3 times your entire annual savings contribution, happening automatically. At this point, you could literally stop saving new money entirely and your wealth would keep growing, but most people don't stop. They get so fired up by watching their net worth climb that they start saving even more aggressively. They realize they're not just building money, they're building freedom. The psychology gets even more interesting when you understand what money really represents. Most people think money is about buying stuff, but wealthy people understand that money is about buying choices. When you have zero savings, you have zero financial options. You take the job you can get, not the job you want. You live where you can afford, not where you want to live. You make decisions based on what you can cover this month, not what's best for your future. But when you have $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 saved, you suddenly have options. You can take risks that broke people can't afford. You can walk away from a job that's making you miserable because you have a cushion. You can invest in yourself, launch a business, or jump on opportunities that require upfront cash. This is why wealthy people say the first $100,000 is the hardest to save. It's not just about the compound interest, though that's certainly part of it. It's about the psychological transformation that happens when you prove to yourself that you're capable of building wealth. Your entire relationship with money changes. Most people never experience this transformation because they quit during those brutal first 10 months. They look at their pathetic savings account balance and think, this isn't working. They don't realize they're literally months away from the psychological breakthrough that would change their entire financial future. The people who push through those first few $1,000s discover something that seems almost magical but is actually just math and psychology working in tandem. They discover that building wealth isn't about making huge sacrifices forever. It's about making small sacrifices temporarily until compound growth takes over and starts doing most of the work. But here's what nobody talks about when they're explaining compound interest. The real power isn't just in the mathematical growth. The real power is in how it changes your behavior once you see it working. People who successfully build wealth don't just save money and forget about it. They become obsessed with optimization. They start looking for ways to increase their income specifically so they can invest more. They start paying attention to fees and tax implications because they realize those seemingly small differences compound over decades. They start making financial decisions based on their future wealth rather than their current circumstances. This behavioral change is so profound that it often affects every area of their life. They become more intentional about how they spend their time because they understand that time and money are conic. They start thinking long-term about everything, not just their finances. Meanwhile, their broke friends are still making the same financial decisions they made 5 years ago, wondering why nothing ever changes. They're still buying lunch every day because it's only $8. They're still financing cars they can't afford because the monthly payment seems manageable. They're still living paycheck to paycheck despite getting multiple raises because they've never Learn the difference between looking wealthy and actually being wealthy. The really frustrating part is watching these same friends complain about money constantly while doing absolutely nothing to change their situation. They'll drop $40 on drinks, be it out 3 hours later, then claim they can't afford to save $20 a month. They'll buy a $1,000 phone on a payment plan, then say investing is too risky. The cognitive dissonance is absolutely stunning. But here's something that's going to make you either laugh or cry, depending on your current situation. The average American spends more money on coffee in a year than they have in their emergency fund. Let that sink in for a minute. People are literally more committed to their caffeine fix than they are to their financial security, and then they wonder why they feel anxious about money all the time. This isn't about shaming people for buying coffee, by the way. This is about understanding that small financial decisions compound just like investments do, except they compound in the wrong direction. That $5 latte every weekday adds up to $1,300 a year, $1,300 that vanishes forever, offering nothing but fleeting satisfaction and a mild energy boost. Now imagine if that same $1,300 went into investments earning 7% annually. After 10 years, it would be worth over $18,000. After 20 years, it would be worth over $53,000. That daily coffee habit literally cost you $53,000 in future wealth, suddenly. Brewing coffee at home doesn't seem like such a sacrifice, does it? But this is where most financial advice completely misses the point. Financial experts love to shame people about their spending habits without understanding the deeper psychological issues at play. They'll tell you to skip the lattes and bring lunch to work. But they won't explain why your brain is so resistant to these changes or how to actually make them stick. The truth is, most people's spending isn't about the money at all. It's about emotion. They're buying lunch because they hate their job, and that 20-minute break feels like the only good part of their day. They're buying clothes they don't need because shopping gives them a temporary hit of dopamine and an otherwise depressing routine. They're going out to bars because they're lonely, and spending money feels like the only way to have a social life. Understanding this is crucial because you can't solve an emotional problem with a mathematical solution. Telling someone who's buying happiness to just stop spending money is like telling someone who's drowning to just stop getting wet. It completely misses the underlying issue. This is why the first $1,000 is so psychologically brutal. You're not just changing your spending habits, you're changing your entire relationship with money and emotions. You're learning to find satisfaction in delayed gratification instead of instant pleasure. You're rewiring decades of conditioning that taught you spending money equals feeling better. The people who successfully make this transition don't do it through willpower alone. They do it by replacing their spending habits with saving habits that provide similar emotional rewards. Instead of getting excited about buying something new, they get excited about watching their investment balance climb. Instead of feeling good about treating themselves to dinner out, they feel good about adding another $100 to their portfolio. This psychological shift is so powerful that it often happens without people even realizing it. One day they're checking their investment account, and they notice they're more excited about a $200 gain in their portfolio than they would be about spending $200 shopping. That's the moment when building wealth stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like a game they're winning. And here's where the mathematics get absolutely ridiculous in the best possible way. Once you have $20,000 invested, your money is earning about $1,400 per year at 7% returns. That's more than most people spend on coffee, lunch, and impulse purchases combined. Your money is literally funding your lifestyle while continuing to grow. At $50,000 invested, your returns are about $3,500 annually. That's almost $300 per month that you're earning while you sleep. At this point, your investments are generating more passive income than most people save from their active income. You've essentially created a part-time job that never calls in sick, never asks for time off, and works 24 hours a day. So there you have it. Your first $1,000 isn't just harder because of the math. It's harder because you're literally battling your own brain's ancient programming while building completely new psychological pathways. But once you smash through that barrier, compound interest and compound psychology work together to make wealth building feel almost automatic. The choice is yours. You can keep making excuses about why this won't work for you, or you can start that brutal but brief battle against your own impulses. Your future millionaire self is waiting.